Welcome to the TELUS Originals DocTalks, a series of talks dedicated to craft, themes, and ideas behind TELUS Originals documentaries with the people behind and in front of the camera. I'm your host, Sabrina Rani Furminger, and for this episode, we'll be talking to Jamila Pomeroy about Union Street. Union Street chronicles the ongoing effects of racism, displacement, and the cultural erasure of African Canadians in Vancouver. Before systemic and political mechanisms destroyed Hogan's Alley, the historic Black neighborhood located on Union Street in the 1970s, the area was the home of train porters, speakeasies, juke joints, and a thriving community, and a regular touring stop for iconic musicians like Jimi Hendrix, Louis Armstrong, and Ella Fitzgerald. The reverberations of this thriving community and its intentional and egregious erasure are still felt. And in the face of adversity, a new generation of Black Vancouverites is working tirelessly to rebuild community and facilitate Black joy. Union Street was an official selection of the 2023 Vancouver International Film Festival and the 2023 Real World Film Festival, where Jamila Pomeroy, the film's director, won the award for Outstanding Director for a Feature Film. Jamila is a Kenyan-Canadian screenwriter and internationally published writer with nearly a decade of experience spanning print, new media, film, and animation. She also works as a director, independent producer, actor, and host. She's worked with over 20 globally recognized outlets, namely BBC, CBC, TELUS, Hypebae and Hypebeast, Network Entertainment, Amazon Prime, Netflix, and more. Her work across all mediums is known to be impact-driven with immersive worlds that unpack contemporary social issues. Specifically, her work often champions historically underrepresented people and narratives, while generating both accessible and intellectually charged storylines. Jamila Pomeroy, welcome to TELUS Originals DocTalks.
Thank you so much for having me.
So for people outside of Vancouver, and also for people who live here who don't know, what was and what is Union Street?
So Union Street is located in historic Black Strathcona. It's significant because just behind it is Hogan's Alley, which was a very vibrant Black community. But the area also in general is also referenced as Hogan's Alley.
Yeah. So what compelled you then to spend time in this world and document it?
Well, I think, growing up Kenyan Canadian, I grew up in the suburbs and moved to Vancouver as a teen. And, I didn't really grow up with a whole lot of other African Canadians. And there was just this yearning for understanding why that was the case. You have big metropolitan cities like Toronto where it's not only multicultural, but there's a very vibrant African diasporic community. And I was seeing the multicultural aspects of Vancouver, but it felt like the Black community was missing, or people were just really scattered throughout the GVRD. So I think that just really intrigued, that just the whole concept of why there weren't many Black folks or African diasporic folks in the GVRD really, is something that I thought of as a kid. And then, as an adult, I wanted to learn more about the history. I learned about Hogan's Alley back in 2008. Then I became a journalist. I had wanted to originally cover this from a journalism perspective, but it felt like a much bigger story that was really deserving of community input. And it felt like it deserved a film.
And what a film it is. back in 2008, though, when you first learned about, this historic Black neighborhood that was, explicitly and essentially demolished, with bulldozers, what was your response to that information?
I think it was, at the time it was quite shocking to me because I, looked around my neighborhood. I did not see many Black folks. When I moved to Vancouver, I moved to East Van. So knowing that there once was a vibrant Black community in East Vancouver just felt kind of, surreal, but also, how could such a beautiful thing be demolished, and why is nobody talking about it? Because it's not something that you learn in school. You learn about other cultural communities in Canada, and we learn a little bit about local history, but it wasn't something that I was ever taught.
Yeah. And why do you think it wasn't taught? Why do you think that you had not heard about it before 2008?
Well, I think, Canada has this tendency of trying to appear as polite and welcoming and progressive as possible. And I think that really trickles down into our education systems, into academia, into just what what we're willing to accept is part of our history as a society. And it's an ugly truth. It's an ugly history. So I think it's, easier to paint this picture of Canada as, there was the Underground Railway and people fled, the South to come to Canada as a way of escaping and finding freedom. And we painted this picture that Canada was this very friendly place for not only the African diaspora, but for African Americans, when in fact, the real history of that is that many people went back to the States because of how unwelcoming Canada was. So I think, a lot of things in the past, I would say 4 or 5 years, especially in the Black community, are kind of coming to surface. These are things that we've known and experienced in the community, and now we're kind of just starting to trickle out into the rest of the conversation in Canada.
Yeah, and erasure and politeness, those are forms of violence as well, right? Like systemic violence. It is something that comes up in a lot of conversations, especially around diversity and inclusion, that there are people who are like, well, we're nice though. We're nice up here. That wouldn't happen here. We're nice. It's like, well, are you? Or are you just not acknowledging what your actual story is? One of the wonderful things about your film is that it straddles time periods in a lot of ways, because you establish, the history that's there. You tell people about what Hogan's Alley and Union Street, were back before, the demolition. And frankly, it seems like the kind of place that was so vibrant, and it would be a wonderful place to hang out, frankly, just to go and listen to music and to eat and just to soak it all in. But you also, introduce us, to this vibrant Black community that we do have right now in Vancouver. Maybe a little spread out, like a diaspora of sorts, but that they are working hard to build that community, and as I talked about in the introduction, facilitate Black joy. So tell me, how did you find this exceptional and remarkable group of people?
Yeah, well, I think you're totally right. I did kind of straddle many different, quite a vast timeline within the storyline. And I think the biggest reason for doing that for me was, I think when we look at history and historical docs or historical content, I think it's easy for the viewer to feel like that is something that's so far removed from today, and something that, oh, oh, this happened 100 years ago, or oh, this happened 200 years ago. We're so past that now. So there's a way to kind of disassociate yourself from the harsh realities of what's happened. But by bringing in this ensemble that are here today, facing many of the same issues that, people were 100 years ago in this community, I think it really helps the viewer understand that this is an ongoing issue, that these are ongoing systemic things, and maybe they've switched form a little bit, and maybe we're the general public has a bit more understanding of a lot of these terms and mechanisms. But like at the end of the day, people are still facing these issues, and these are things that we really need to face head on. Now is the time. But I think picking the ensemble, to me, it was just really important to showcase a variety of people within the African diaspora. Quite often when we look at film and television, there's this very, there's a Black monolith that we see. There's a very specific kind of Blackness that we accept as Blackness. Often it's very based in African American culture. We don't often get to see the immigrant experience, or what it's like when maybe you have your multi-ethnicities in your lineage, or we don't get to see the variety that is so present in the community. So for one, I just wanted to really make sure that there was diversity even within the Black community, and we were able to see all of those different intersections of how people experience culture. And then on another level, just really having the ability to see people from different ethos, having people who are business owners and chefs and artists and community leaders and activists. It just helps us have a much more well-rounded perspective of what the experience is like today.
Did you find in your conversations with them that their goals were all the same? Were their goals aligned, or did you find any differences in what they were working for and towards?
Yeah, I mean, something that was really, really beautiful was when I was doing all the pre-interviews, like other than Asha and Roger, who were in the film, no one knew each other. Like these were all people from different pockets of the community who were brought together for the film. But despite that, there were so many similarities. Quite frankly, it made my job easy, because I was like, okay, well, everyone's talking about the need for community space. Everyone's talking about, facing barriers either in your career or your business, or, your music, whatever it may be, because of XYZ. So there were just like the similarities were just right across the board, even though many of the ensemble members did not know each other. So it just goes to show what a shared experience this is, no matter what your experience within the Black community is like.
You mentioned earlier that systemic barriers still exist, and I want to talk about an example of what that might be. But I feel like before we do, we need to say why Hogan's Alley, why Union Street, was demolished, because it was it was something that came down from, the government, right, on high, because they wanted to basically push out the Black community, right?
Yeah, so it unfortunately was a collaborative effort amongst the municipality of Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Society, I believe it's called, and with support from the province and the so there's a lot of big governing forces coming together to make this decision, and it was a decision that was basically, spread over the span of, I would say, about 10 years, implemented very slowly, which is very scary because it was deliberate and slow enough for community members who were not part of the Black community to not see a big change that might alert people who are caring for the Black community. So it was done in a very as I would say, sneaky way, starting out with just denying basic city services like garbage disposal. And, so all of a sudden you have things like that, every citizen should get, like garbage. Okay, now you have this neighborhood. Why is there garbage everywhere? Why is there? So it starts to give then the city and the Canadian Mortgage Housing Association just all of these reasons for this, what they called, dilapidation and decay in the neighborhood. And the garbage disposal is just one of many different tactics that were used. There are also reports of, electricity. People were denied business licenses. Many people denied mortgages. Because the National Bank was also had their fingers in it. So there was just an effort to really deny Black Vancouverites the ability to not just thrive, but just to live in the city and have basic human rights. So that process was carried out over quite some time, and the neighborhood, regardless of having all of these obstacles, was still thriving. It was still, you had community leaders like Nora Hendricks, who's Jimi Hendrix's grandma, in the neighborhood, really, creating space for the community in many different forms. And, you had musicians coming up. I mean, Jimi Hendrix spent a lot of time here because part of his family is based in Vancouver. Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong. So lots of very prominent African American artists were coming up to the city to play, and often stay actually in the neighborhood when they were denied the ability to rent a hotel in Vancouver. So there's so many, like, and it's crazy because this is not the Vancouver I think most people believe Vancouver to be. I mean, there's a lot of similarities with actually like the Deep South at the time, just the experiences that people were having in the city. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but ultimately the way that they were able to demolish the neighborhood was with this massive plan to build a big 8-lane freeway that was there was the plan that was pitched, and then there was what actually was carried out. So the plan was that they were going to build this big American style freeway that connected Vancouver with Seattle. That it was supposed to increase traffic to Vancouver and make this city like a very big metropolis and big city, like something similar to Seattle, because Vancouver was still quite a small town at that time. They didn't actually have all the finance in order to pull this off, but still proceeded in with these sort of baby steps. And one of the first steps that was carried out was figuring out where all the turning points were, where the viaducts would be built, and the Black community seemed like a great place to them because they had all of this, quote unquote, dilapidation and decay. They referred to the community as the blight of Vancouver that needed to be cut out. For the city and for lawmakers and city planners at the time, that was their best bet. For them, it was, they were killing two birds with one stone by building this. And there were actually commercials that were running on TV at the time, different advertising to just paint the Black community as this blight that needed to be removed from the city in order to, the campaign was called To Build a Better City. So this was their vision, was to really eliminate the Black population, which is, it's scary. Like it's really quite, and this is not that long ago.
Yeah, this is what, 1970,
Yeah, in the early 70s. Yeah. And I mean that it was carried out over many, many years, but eventually, the construction started happening at that point and homes were bulldozed.
And what I find shocking is the awareness that this kind of thing could still happen again, that there are still systemic, racism and these barriers, to having, communities of people that, people in power don't like. Did you encounter any situation like that, or any knowledge of anything like that, about what is going on today, in the course of working on Union Street?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's not, it's like, I want to say, oh, it's funny, but it's not funny, but it was just quite shocking and telling of how far we have not gone. My big plan for the end of the film was actually quite different from what the ending of the film is. I really wanted to have this touch point and moment, the ending, where everyone from not just the ensemble in the film would come together, but people from the neighborhood and people who maybe don't live in the neighborhood would be able to come and celebrate together in the form of a block party. Yeah, and I really, I think it's something that we don't get to see in the city. Like we see many other different cultural groups having street festivals and block parties and, it more like informal gatherings, but this is not really something you get to see for the Black community. So it just, it felt special to help to try and curate that, but then also to come back to the neighborhood. It felt like a really beautiful moment. The permitting process in the city of Vancouver is everyone knows that it's difficult, but in order to do a it's a bit different than a film permit, because you need a film permit, but then in addition to that you need a license to do an event. A block party in specific, you need a homeowner on the street or within a certain radius of the street that you'd like to have it. They actually need to apply for a homeowner. So you can't as a renter, but as a homeowner, you are able to able to do it. It's funny because it had said like they use resident language, but it's really a homeowner that needs to apply for this. I live in the neighborhood. I live quite close to where we wanted to do the block party. We wanted to do it around Rise Up, which is Roger Collins' spot. And there was just we had, our PM had canvassed the neighborhood, asking people, asking homeowners if anybody would be willing to, apply for this with us. No response. I then went around door knocking, like thinking, okay, well, maybe it's just because they got a letter and they didn't receive, maybe if I went with a big smile and was like, please, like, we really want to do this, and told them what it would mean, maybe then we'd be able to do it. And I knocked around the neighborhood. A lot of people didn't answer their doors, but also a lot of a lot of folks just were like, oh, well, this is a liability for me, or I've never met you before, or, oh, but you don't live on the street. I'm like, no, I live really close. See, you can see, but there's my condo. It's down the street. But it was just overwhelmingly, it just did not feel like, not just that I wasn't welcome, but the fact that it was this big celebration for the Black community was just not something that people were interested. I tried to speak with representatives at the city, asking if they could make this exception, if there was a way to make it happen. And it never happened. So it was just very telling that this story of how the Black community have been pushed out, and this need for community space, and this need for people to allow Black folks in the city to take up space as a culture and community. It was just so telling that we were still facing the same things that we've been facing for so long.
What an infuriating and telling story. On the same line of memories and memorable moments, but possibly not as frustrating, bring us into some of, the more memorable moments, from your experience filming, like what when you cast your mind's eye back to your experience, making this film, what are some of the either very pleasant memories or not so pleasant memories, that come to mind?
Oh, there were so many pleasant memories. I mean, it was just, I feel like we just had such a dream cast of people. Everyone brought there was just so much warmth and vibrance, and I think everyone was just really happy to be there, which you don't always get that opportunity when you're directing, to just work with people who were so excited to not just be in the film, but to be making some sort of change with this film, because I think everyone kind of took it on as their own, because this is just such a shared experience, and just shared hope for what the future could be. I mean, a day that just really made me laugh almost the entire day was shooting with Roger Collins, who owns Rise Up. I told him, just go about your day. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. We're going to do an interview. We're going to get some footage of you in the shop, but I really want you to just, if a customer comes in, just help them. And he did. And it was the interactions just with customers were so fun. And a lot of people were really excited that, their favorite neighborhood spot was going to be on film. So watching the footage of that, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that didn't end up in the film, but just a lot of the dialogue of the neighbors and customers was just really funny. My dad is also in the film. My dad is Abdul in the film, and he'd never been on camera before. Didn't really know, it's kind of funny when you tell your parents what you do. It's just, I feel like, seems like such a, I don't think they actually know what it is that you do when you work in film, because it's such a kind of elusive career. I mean, everyone can picture writing, but I don't think everyone can picture directing. So it was beautiful, not just to be able to have him see what I do, but to also just have this heart-to-heart conversation about his experience and what it was like for him coming to Canada as a refugee from Kenya. And I think it was also like a healing moment and experience for us as well, just because, I mean, you talk about, you ask your parents to tell you these stories and things, and you get little snippets of things, but once the camera is in front of you, I think for a lot of people, there's just the depth of story is just so profound.
And sometimes with our parents, we don't even know what questions to ask. to get the story. What were some things that you learned about your dad through that conversation?
Well, I mean, I knew my dad dealt with a lot before he immigrated here, but most of my childhood, like, I just remember him having this like massive smile on his face all the time. Like he talked about, oh, someone said something kind of unkind to him, but he was always just so happy and bubbly and smiley. So it just, I think, really reframed what his actual experience was like growing up and raising us. And I think also just kind of some of the sacrifices he made to like he definitely wanted me to be very aware as a kid, but I think he did not want me to bear the burden of his real experience, which feels, just in hindsight, feels so selfless. And so I mean, I feel like that's just also intrinsically part of the immigrant parent experience too.
Yeah. And yet, because I have an immigrant parent as well who was a refugee at one point in his life. I think, though, in trying to protect us by not sharing, these kind of things, like, they also put us at a bit of a disadvantage, right? Because then we don't appreciate, the full story, of what their life has been and, and what they have had to go through.
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of responsibility did you feel towards the people you featured in your film, including the people whose homes were destroyed by the city and all the other forces all those years ago? What did you do as a filmmaker to ensure that you fulfilled your responsibility to these people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was when I was doing the paper edit and really pulling together the framework of the film before we went to filming. At that point, I kind of realized just the levity of this film and the potential impact. But I don't think I honestly really realized the impact until our premiere date. Like, I felt the responsibility, and it was really important to me that everyone felt the freedom and space to speak their truth and to tell us what their experience is in a very unfiltered way. That part was very important to me. Fighting for all of the very important historical conversations was very important to me. There are parts of the film that are like, these aren't easy truths to realize. And I think I made a pact with myself that if this film is getting made, we're ensuring that everything is included, just because, there has been a lot of selective history that we've seen, and it's important to just put it all on the table. And I think, I walk through the neighborhood with my dog every day, and so much of those moments before filming, I just, it's hard to feel so connected to the community now, but have very little connection to the community that once was. Because you can't, because it was destroyed. So I think that part was just, like, I remember going for a walk before we were filming and walking around the neighborhood and looking at all these really beautiful, gorgeous houses, and knowing many of them were actually, many of them were built by the Black community, and just wondering, like, oh, I wish that, like, it almost brings me to tears thinking of it, but like, I wish I could just, go to a community elder that lives in the community and like sit on that porch and talk to them and listen to them firsthand of what their experience was like and what their story of coming to the neighborhood was like. But I can't, because that's what happens when a community is destroyed. And I did talk to some of the descendants of the families from the neighborhood, leading up to the film, but those original elders who were living in the neighborhood, they're not in the community anymore. So I think the part of me being able to pay homage to them was really through visually showcasing all these really beautiful, stunning homes, and potentially provoking a moment for the viewers of, oh my goodness, like if these houses could talk, if these walls could talk, what would they say? So yeah, I think showing just the beautiful craftsmanship of these homes you can definitely see that in the film, and it's present, and there's a lot of family photos and archival elements that are present. But yeah, that was my way of paying homage to the original community.
Do you think it's realistic to want, to have to gather the Black community, to live and work and play in that neighborhood again? Is that something that we talked about, being able to, being able to go and sit on that porch and being able to have that access to the, to the elders. And also for everybody who says, oh, there are no Black people in Vancouver, I'll be like, well, yes, there's a community, and there was a community, but is that something that you think is a realistic hope? Or is it like, you have different hopes, different goals?
I mean, that's my, not even just hope, but goal to see in my lifetime. Like I even if I couldn't have that experience of going to an elder who's like sitting and knitting on their porch in the historic Black community, like I look forward to being that person, and maybe one day having a house in the neighborhood and being able to foster and facilitate that experience for somebody else. I do think it's possible. I think that we don't even have to wait that long. Like I think that it's something that can actually be easily achievable with city planning. And we do have a big motion that's been put forward for the Black Land Trust. So there are things that are happening, and I think that it's going to take it took more than the Black community to stop the full destruction of the historic Black community, because there could have been even more destruction than what had happened. And really that it was, all of that activism was started by the Black community, and was really, the Black community really, really held it down, and were, right until the end, fighting to not be taken away from the community. But there was also a lot of help from the Chinese Canadian community and from other cultural communities that were in the neighborhood to help advocate for this space. And I think we really need to see the same thing happen today in order for us to have a future where we can have that, dedicated Black cultural space. And, when the viaducts go down, I would love to see, a Black community center or a Black venue. I mean, we have many, many, many Black musicians selling out places like Rogers Arena, but where is the place where, we can have musicians come and share music, and artists, and like all of these things. And I know it's
storytelling, right? Like storytelling. Absolutely. And community gathering, and yes.
Yeah, and I think that shared space is so important to allowing that to happen, because if we're spread out throughout the city, if we don't have a hub like other cultural communities, if we don't have that space, it's just unfortunately not going to happen. It's crazy that you have, even just a group of an ensemble of really powerful people in this documentary, and most of them didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
And
yet now they do, because
yes,
of you.
Exactly.
And that's incredible. Yeah. I love to imagine you, on your porch as an elder in the future, and a young filmmaker was up, was like, I don't live here, but I want to do a black party for the, and you're like, yes, I will sign that. I will vouch for you.
Yeah.
I will take the liability. I will sign the paper. So when that happens, you let us know decades from now.
Yeah.
So your film screened at, has screened at, the 2023 Vancouver International Film Festival and elsewhere. But I'm assuming that this local screening was especially, important, for you. What was that like for you? What feedback did you receive, that you cherish the most?
Yeah, well, I mean, it definitely, yeah, it was very surreal. I mean, to say it in one word, was very surreal. I did not foresee the kind of response that we've had. I think when you're told as a woman of color, so often in your career, that I think people in the community, the bar is set very low of how much you can achieve and what your impact is. And I think that really, I don't think I really realized how much that actually was affecting my perception of what I could do in my career and as a creative. And my personal bar was very low. I did not think that the impact that we could I just had not foreseen foreseen the impact that we had. But on our premiere, I was very nervous, and so I went in early, and I got a seat with friends and some family, and a friend of mine came up to me and was like, oh my gosh, like, check this out, and showed me this video that they had taken on their phone, and there was a lineup down the street and around the block, and I was looking at just looking at the venue, and we were already full. I'm like, oh, that's so crazy. Yeah, okay, those were people lining up to get in. And she's like, no, that's the line of people who don't have tickets, who are trying to see the film.
Wow.
And in that moment, I was just, kind of blown away. I mean, I believe our premiere date was like on a Sunday at like 9 p.m. Like, why are that many people coming? Like, it was, I mean, with a documentary in general, usually you don't have as much turnout as scripted films. So it was just, it just really blew my mind. And then, we sold out all of our planned showing dates, and VIF added more, and then the additional one would sell out, and then they would add another one, and then
wow,
it became like Curtis, who is the lead programmer at VIF, he was like, I think you set a record for how many shows had sold out, how many showings, how many programs you were a part of, because they did some mentorship programs as well, and different talks and whatnot. And he's like, I think Union Street set a record for this, it just really goes to show that I mean, for one, there is a space in Canada for Black films, which we hardly ever see, and people are craving it, and people from all walks of life. Like, I mean, I definitely think that some of the showings, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this many Black folks in a theater, which is amazing. And also just, people of all walks of life and ethnicities are craving Black Canadian content, and we need more of it.
Absolutely. Did any of the people who appear in the film actually attend those VIF screenings? And was it their first time seeing the film? And also, if so, what did you hear from them?
Yeah, I think I chatted with a lot of the ensemble members after we filmed, asking if there was anything that they had said that they felt uncomfortable with, or anything that they wanted to not have in the film. Everyone was like, No, no, no. I'm just happy to be here. So I kind of made just the executive decision to, um, yeah, do a cut and not get specific feedback from everybody. And I think with the documentary too, that just allows for, yeah, I mean, you want to be respectful of what people are comfortable with saying, but then there's also the other side of being a true documentarian and the journalistic aspect of just, yeah, being showcasing this very authentic and real experience. So yeah, I mean, the ensemble came out and most people saw it all together, which was really beautiful. A lot of people brought their families. Almost everybody wore traditional dress too, which is really, really beautiful to see. It was at the Rio, and I it's funny, like there was a lineup down the street, and I don't think I've ever seen that much like African batik fabric in a Vancouver street in my life. Like people
that
just,
must have been amazing. Yeah, especially
absolutely.
considering you'd have two, boutique owners like making the fashion in the film. I would expect for the fashion to show up. And that must have been really powerful too, to have all of those people there on the street, in East Van, where there had been, this community, right? Like that must have been incredibly powerful for you.
Absolutely.
All the success that you've had with Union Street, the sold out screenings and the award, that you won at Real World. How did this film and your experiences with this film change you, as a filmmaker and potentially as a human being?
Well, I think it made me, I mean, for one, realize my potential as a filmmaker, and knowing that this is my debut feature film and that this is just the beginning just feels really, really exciting and promising. And that, yeah, that I mean, yeah, to have this be a debut and have the response that it has had I just feel like it's I mean, I feel lucky, but I also know there's a lot of work that goes into it, so it's not luck, but yeah, I feel very yeah, I guess very, very just blessed that I've had this experience. But it's definitely, I mean, the amount of press that we've gotten has been insane. I flew to Toronto to do E-Talk and the social, and just, yeah, I think that the press has just really been also so, the press never gets thanked. I feel like the press gets critiqued all the time, but I really do think that just the visibility has been so incredibly amplified by writers and journalists and people in the press. Like I think that, yeah, I can't thank them enough, because I think that's also just opened up a lot of doors for me in my career, but also just, seeing that a film like this can make impact, and being able to talk with people in the film now, a few years later, and they're seeing the impact in their own businesses. People are seeing the impact in their community. Like I've spoken with Roger. I mean, I go there as often as I can. I live pretty close, but and he said to me, he's like, Jamila, somebody comes in almost every day. We have multiple people coming in saying, "Oh my gosh, I just watched Union Street on TELUS last night, like, and I didn't even realize that you were here, and wow, like I'm from wherever," and they start, sharing their whole life story, and they're just happy to come in and get a patty, or, buy something from their shop of local Black vendors. And it's just been, just so beautiful to see that I can actually see this tangible impact. Yeah.
Fantastic. So then now, considering this experience, what is a Jamila Pomeroy documentary? Like, what needs to be present in a story and a topic and a theme, to get you hooked? And, because you're going to have to spend like a few years and a lot of passion and energy, with this story, right? So, yeah. So,
well, I mean, it's funny, like that. This is actually something I've been thinking about a lot because I'm I'm about to film my second feature film this summer. And yeah, I think for me, it's this balance of like the ensemble. I think I'm just very big on like community driven, ensemble driven stories. I mean, I'm enjoy doing profiles and things on more maybe expansive ideas, but this idea of bringing people together from a specific community or from a just specific experience to push forward something that creates impact. I think that's very broad, but I think that that's kind of where I see myself headed. But also having this balance of, giving people cultural context or historical context to why something is the way it is, I think is very important to me. I think it helps people understand things because we can't assume that people know history or understand cultural nuances. And I think that that's something that I feel sometimes when I'm watching documentaries. Things are very rooted in the present moment, but don't really take the time to explain why things are like that, or provide cultural context for people who are outside of those communities. Because, these nuances can be so subtle, or they can, so I think it kind of equips viewers for being able to understand the people featured a bit more and understand why the issues they're talking about are important.
I will say you are perhaps like the first documentary filmmaker that I've spoken to who speaks about the people that they feature in their film as an ensemble, and like really it's about bringing people together and also, affecting real life, real world change and community building. Like I can't wait to see where you're going to take us next. Speaking of next, what are you working on for your second feature? What are you able to tell us at this time?
Well, it's a feature about the African diasporic food scene, which I'm so excited for.
Wow, the research you're going to be doing.
Yeah. It's so terrible. Oh no, I have to eat delicious food. Yeah. So, my background, like I went to culinary school, and I have a background in food anthropology. So it's kind of actually a bit in a way kind of returning to my roots. I started off as a writer, and my beat was food, so it feels a bit like coming back to a very familiar place in early on in my career, and I'm just so excited. I feel like people in the city don't know that there is a African diasporic food scene, but yeah, it'll be covering things not just in Vancouver but just in the entire GVRD. I feel like Vancouverites get so where we don't want to drive 30 minutes or there's a hard line. It's like a video game where there's a line to the city where people can't cross, but I think I hope to entice people to also venture outside of the city because there's some really incredible food, but yeah, it's food stories and really centering people's experiences and why food is something that has helped the African diasporic community thrive and pass down cultural teachings.
Wow. I can't wait for when that film premieres and, you have a catered screening or something with like all and have the party for that one.
Exactly.
What are you most looking forward to eating this summer?
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, it's funny. One of the people in the film is going to be actually my neighbor, and he told me about this Trinidadian restaurant, and I've only ever had Trinidadian food actually. I had a friend growing up, and so eating at her house, but I've never been to a Trinidadian restaurant, so I'm very excited for that.
Doubles. You can
Yes.
Snuffles. Yes.
Yes.
My favorite. I love it. Oh, what a wonderful experience.
I'm very excited. Absolutely.
So I guess we are coming to the end of our time together today. And I'm sad about that. So I can't wait to talk to you again in the future about whatever else you're working on. But, for our final question then, how would you like people to feel, or what kind of conversations would you like to inspire in people when the credits are rolling at the end of Union Street?
Well, I think, I try not to set myself up with expectations of what the viewer experience is, but what I've been told from viewers is that they leave both feeling like, there's this like very, very boiling rage that a lot of people feel after the film because of, a lot of people, especially people who've lived here, who don't know that this happened in their own backyard. I think there's a lot of anger, but there's also a lot of joy and hopefulness as well. Like a lot of people have said, I don't think I've felt so happy and joyful and excited for the future while also being so upset. So I think it's coupling that those both of those feelings. I think it's easy to want to it's easy to want people to feel one single emotion, but I think with something like this, you're bound to feel a whole bunch of different things. So I hope that there is a feeling of joy and resilience, and that we can make action. And I hope that people, not only in Vancouver, but, across the country are really able to deep dive into their own neighborhoods, because this is something that did not just happen in Vancouver. This is something that has happened across the entire country. This is a very, one part of a much bigger story. And it's something also that's happened to other cultural communities. So I think, it's an invitation for people to look at the history of the places that they live and really, do their part as a community member and as a neighbor to ensure that we don't have to deal with something like this again.
Right. And pour that rage and that joy into action and into the community. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jamila Pomeroy.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening to and watching the TELUS Originals DocTalks, and to our guest, Jamila Pomeroy. Watch TELUS Originals documentaries at TELUS Optik TV Channel 8 and watch.telusoriginals.com, and follow us at TELUS Originals on Instagram. DocTalks are a production of TELUS Originals. This episode was produced by Sharon Bradley with technical support by Matt Waterworth. Ken Soy is the production executive for TELUS Originals DocTalks. DocTalks are produced on the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations.